You said nothing when someone asked what you're doing for your birthday, and for a moment, you wondered if something was wrong with you. Why don't I care? Why doesn't it feel special anymore? But what if I told you that this feeling might actually reveal something deep about your mind? Psychologists have studied this, and what they discovered might completely change the way you see yourself. So stay with me, because this might explain more about you than you expect. Let's start with something most people never talk about. There is a group of people in the world who didn't choose to stop caring about their birthday. Life slowly taught them to. Quietly, year after year. In 1967, psychologist Martin Seligman ran a series of experiments that changed psychology forever. He discovered something called learned helplessness. In simple terms, it means this: when someone experiences repeated disappointment and they have no control over it, their brain eventually stops trying, not because they are weak, not because they are broken, but because the brain is efficient. It learns, it adapts, and after enough failed expectations, it makes a quiet decision. Stop expecting, because expecting hurts. Now, here is where birthdays come in. Your brain runs on predictions. Every moment of every day, your brain is guessing what will happen next. Neuroscientists Schultz, Diane, and Montague discovered something fascinating about this. Your brain doesn't release dopamine simply because something good happens. It releases dopamine when something good happens that you didn't expect. The reward is not just the event. The reward is the surprise, the gap between what you expected and what actually happened. Now think about birthdays. When you're young, birthdays feel magical. You expect the party. You expect your friends to remember. You expect to feel seen, chosen, special, even if it's just for one day. But when that expectation isn't met, not once, not twice, but year after year, your brain does something important. It recalibrates. It stops predicting the reward. It stops expecting the celebration. And eventually, you stop caring, not because you wanted to, but because your brain learned something. It learned that hoping costs more than forgetting. So when someone says, "It's just another day," listen carefully. That sentence wasn't born from apathy. It wasn't born from coldness. It wasn't born from indifference. It was built from emotional scar tissue, layer by layer, year after year, quietly, without anyone noticing. And the calmness in that sentence, that isn't emotional emptiness. It's the sound of someone who learned how to protect themselves. But here's where things get interesting. Not everyone who ignores their birthday arrived there the same way. Psychologically speaking, there are 3 different types of people who stop celebrating their birthday. And as you listen, you might recognize yourself in one of them. The first type is the scarred. These are people whose relationship with birthdays was shaped by disappointment. Early on, the brain learned something important. Expectations lead to pain. So the brain stopped expecting. The armor went up. And over time, the day stopped meaning anything, because meaning it meant risking disappointment. If this sounds like you, there's something important to understand. The armor worked. It protected you. But sometime, armor slowly turns into a cage. The second type is the overloaded. This group is very different. These people weren't hurt. They're just busy. Their brain is running 100 things at once. Work, projects, family, deadlines, responsibilities. Psychologists sometimes call this time blindness. Days blur into weeks. Weeks blur into months. You look up and suddenly it's November. And you genuinely cannot explain what happened to October. These people didn't avoid their birthday. They didn't reject it. Their brain simply filed it under not urgent, right next to the dentist appointment they keep postponing. In the to-do list that somehow became an entire novel. These people aren't neglecting themselves. Many of them are incredibly driven, purpose-focused, deeply engaged with life. They didn't forget their birthday because they don't value themselves. They forgot because their mind is focused on so many other things. Then there is the third type, the one that confuses people the most. These people didn't forget their birthday. They weren't hurt. They simply looked at the entire ritual. The cake, the candles, the singing, the social media posts, the performance of happiness. And they quietly said, "I'm good," not because they're lonely, not because they're cold. They simply don't need it. Psychologists Deci and Richard Ryan studied something called self-determination theory. They found that the most psychologically healthy people are those whose sense of worth comes from within. Not from external celebrations, not from attention, not from approval, but from their own internal sense of meaning. Another researcher, Philip Brickman, called the opposite of this the hedonic treadmill. It's the endless cycle of chasing the next celebration, the next achievement, the next moment that makes us feel important. But the feeling never lasts. The party ends, the excitement fades, and we start chasing the next one. But the third type of person stepped off that treadmill. While everyone else waits for one special day each year to feel important, these people learned how to feel whole on a random Tuesday afternoon, with no audience, no celebration, no permission. And strangely enough, that can make other people uncomfortable. Because when someone doesn't need the celebration, it quietly challenges those who do. But there's something deeper here. Even if you've reached a place where birthdays truly don't matter anymore, there may still be something worth looking at. Imagine this for a moment. You're 8 years old. You've been counting down to your birthday for weeks. You told everyone at school. You imagined the balloons, the cake, the moment where everyone looks at you. And for one day, you feel like the most important person in the room. Then the day arrives, and it's quiet. Maybe someone forgot. Maybe someone didn't show up. Maybe the moment never felt as big as you imagined. You didn't cry, at least not where anyone could see. But quietly, something changed. Your expectations lowered. The next year, a little lower, and the year after that, lower still, until one day you stopped expecting anything at all, and you told yourself it was just being realistic. But researchers have discovered something interesting. It's called the anniversary effect. Our brains don't just remember emotionally significant dates, they relive them. Every year as the date approaches, the emotional memory activates again. Your life moved forward, but part of your brain stayed in that moment. That 8-year-old version of you is still somewhere inside, still waiting, still wondering, maybe this year will be different. Now we reach the most important question. Psychologist Jennifer Crocker studied something called contingencies of self-worth, the conditions people attach to their own value. And she discovered something fascinating. Sometimes people disconnect from celebrations not because they are free from them, but because they are afraid of them. Afraid that if they let themselves want the celebration, if they allow themselves to hope, and it doesn't happen, it will confirm a painful belief that maybe they don't matter as much as they hoped. So they reject the celebration first. They say, I don't care about birthdays, because not wanting it feels safer than wanting it and being disappointed. And this creates the most important distinction in this entire conversation. There is a huge difference between someone who doesn't need the celebration and someone who wants it but is afraid to admit it. The first person is free, the second person is protected. And from the outside, those two people look exactly the same, but internally they feel very different. So ask yourself honestly, is it freedom or is it fear? Only you know the answer. We've been taught something strange about birthdays. That celebration equals caring, that the size of the party equals the size of your worth. But what if that belief is wrong? What if the real measure of self-worth isn't how many people celebrate you? What if the real measure is how peaceful you feel without needing the celebration? Maybe someone watching this spent their last birthday completely alone, not because no one cared, but because for the first time, the silence felt enough. If that's you, there is nothing wrong with you. You may have built something many people spend their entire lives chasing, a sense of wholeness that doesn't depend on the outside world, and you built it quietly, without a party, without candles, without anyone singing for you. And just in case nobody told you this, happy birthday, whenever it is. You made it another year, and that matters, even if you're the only one in the room who knows it. If this video found you today, maybe it wasn't random. Have you ever spent a birthday completely alone and actually felt okay about it? If you have, drop a love in the comments and subscribe if you enjoy videos that explore the hidden psychology behind everyday life, because the next video might explain even more about you.